Listen up, dears. One grim morning in '48, my boss betrayed me after 20 years thinking I'd break. But my crew's secret plan would ruin him. Before you hear this incredible tale, I humbly ask you to hit that like button, subscribe, and tap the bell icon, so you never miss another heartfelt story like this one. Listen close, my dears, because this ain't just any yarn. It's the truth of my life, etched deep in my bones. I'm Everett Hale, and in 1948, at 52 years old, I stood in the shadow of Whitaker's textile mill in Fall River, Massachusetts, feeling the ground shift under me. 20 years I poured into that mill, sweat, heart, and every ounce of loyalty, only to have Clarence Whitaker, the man I called boss, cast me aside like a worn-out rag. But he didn't reckon on the fire he'd spark, nor the men I'd trained, my crew, my family, turning the tables on him. Want to know how a single morning changed everything? Pull up a chair and let your old grandpa tell you. I started at Whitaker's in 1928, a scrawny 22-year-old fixing looms for 30 cents an hour. Fall River was a textile town then, its mills humming like the heartbeat of New England. Whitaker's was the biggest churning out cotton sheets for half the country. Clarence's father, Amos Whitaker, built it from nothing, a man who shook your hand and meant it. When I joined, Amos saw something in me, grit maybe, and by 38 he made me foreman. I oversaw 200 workers, 50 looms, and every bolt of cloth that left those gates. My wife Mabel used to tease, "Everett, you love that mill more'n you love me." I'd laugh, but she wasn't all wrong. By 48, things had changed. Amos passed in 43, and Clarence took over. He was 40, slick as oil, with a Yale degree and eyes that never met yours. He cared more for ledgers than looms, always talking about efficiency and margins. The war was over, but the mills were hurting, cheaper cloth from the South, unions stirring trouble. Clarence brought in consultants, city fellas in fedoras who knew nothing about weaving, but plenty about cutting costs. I felt the squeeze. Longer shifts, fewer repairs, thread so thin it snapped under pressure. My crew grumbled, but I kept them steady. "We'll get through," I'd say, believing it myself. That fateful morning, October 12, 1948, I walked into Clarence's office atop the mill's main building. The air smelled of coal and cotton dust, and through the window I saw the Merrimack River glinting under a gray sky. Clarence sat behind his mahogany desk, papers stacked neat, a fountain pen in hand. He didn't look up. "Everett," he said, voice flat as a gravestone, "your position's been eliminated. Restructuring. Here's your severance." He slid a brown envelope across the desk, still not meeting my eyes. 20 years, and he couldn't spare a glance. I stood there, heart pounding like a busted loom. "Eliminated?" I managed. "I run this mill, Clarence. Trained every man out there. Kept your machines humming through strikes and storms." He finally looked up, eyes cold. "Your wages don't fit our new model. You're too expensive, Everett. Nothing personal." Nothing personal? I'd missed my boy Tommy's 10th birthday for an emergency shift. I'd carried Amos's, casket at his funeral. I took the envelope, hands shaking, and saw my crew below, setting up for the day's run. Did they know what was coming? What would my crew do when they heard? Would they stand by me, or keep their heads down to save their own skins? I walked out, the envelope heavy in my coat. Downstairs, Agnes, the office clerk, waited with a clipboard, her face pale. "I'm sorry, Mr. Hale," she whispered. "They need your keys and your logbook." I handed him over, feeling like I was giving up my own blood. My logbook held 20 years of notes, every machine fix, every worker I trained, every late night keeping the mill alive. As I stepped into the yard, my first shift lead, Walter Cobb, spotted me. Walter was 35, a Navy vet with a limp from Normandy. "Everett, you look like you seen a ghost," he said. I couldn't speak. "How do you tell a man you're done?" "Word. Spread like wildfire." By noon, Walter and 5 others, Jimmy Doyle, Frank Shea, Eddie Walsh, and the O'Connor twins, Patrick and Sean, cornered me by the loading docks. "Is it true?" Jimmy asked, his Irish brogue thick with anger. "They sacked you?" I nodded. "Clarence says I cost too much." Frank, a wiry fella who'd been with me since 35, spat on the ground. "Cost too much? You're the only reason this place ain't collapsed." The twins, barely 25, looked ready to storm Clarence's office. "What's the plan, boss?" Patrick asked. I shook my head. "Ain't your fight, boys. You got families." But they wouldn't hear. Walter clapped a hand on my shoulder. "You trained us, Everett. You stayed late when my boy was sick. Got me that extra shift. We ain't letting this slide." My throat tightened. These men weren't just workers. They were my brothers, forged in the mill's heat and hustle. Mabel always said I had a knack for making folks feel like family. Now that loyalty was stirring something dangerous. I saw Clarence watching from his window, his face a mask. Did he know the storm he'd unleashed? Was Clarence underestimating my crew? Or did he have a trick up his sleeve to keep him in line? That afternoon, I went home to our little house on Bedford Street. Mabel was kneading dough, her apron dusted with flour. She took one look at my face and stopped. "Everett, what's wrong?" I told her everything, the words spilling like thread from a broken spool. She listened, her hazel eyes fierce. "That snake," she hissed. "After all you done for his daddy's mill." Tommy, now 14, overheard from the parlor. "Pa, you gonna let him do this?" he asked, his voice cracking. I ruffled his hair, hiding my own doubt. "We'll figure it out, son." That night, I couldn't sleep. The mill's rhythm, clack of looms, hum of belts, played in my head. I'd built that rhythm, trained every hand to keep it going. Now what? Around midnight, a knock came. Walter stood on my porch, rain dripping from his cap. "Everett, we're meeting at Doyle's Tavern. The boys want you there." I hesitated. "Walter, this could cost you your jobs." He grinned, fierce. "Ain't no mill without you, boss." Against my better judgment, I grabbed my coat. Doyle's was a smoky dive, packed with 30 workers, my crew, faces grim under flickering lamps. Jimmy stood on a chair, beer in hand. "Everett's been our backbone. Clarence thinks he can toss him out and we'll just bow. I say we show him what this mill really is." Cheers erupted. Frank leaned in, voice low. "We found something. Everett, in the maintenance logs, repairs marked done that never happened. Looms running on frayed belts, gears half broke." My gut twisted. "That's dangerous," I said. "Could hurt someone." Sean O'Connor nodded. "And it's fraud. Clarence has been skimping to pocket the savings." Was Clarence's greed putting lives at risk, and could we prove it before he silenced us? I held up a hand. "This ain't just about me. If those logs are true, the state inspectors need to know. But we gotta be smart. Clarence ain't no fool." Walter pulled out a ledger, pages creased. "Agnes slipped us this. She's scared, but she's with us." The ledger showed repairs budgeted, but never done, signed off by Clarence himself. My heart sank. Amos would have never let this happen. "We need more," I said. "Witnesses, documents, and we gotta move fast." Patrick grinned. "Already on it. Eddie's talking to the union rep tomorrow." The next morning I stayed away from the mill, but Walter kept me posted. The crew slowed work. Nothing illegal, just mechanical issues and safety checks. Looms jammed, belts slipped, production crawled. Clarence was furious. Storming the floor, but he couldn't fire 'em all, not with orders piling up. By noon, he called a meeting. Walter slipped in, later telling me Clarence's words. "Hale's gone. You want to join him? Keep this up. New foremen are coming cheaper and hungrier." The crew held firm, but I worried. Clarence had money, connections. Could we outlast him? That evening, Mabel found me staring at old photos. Me and Amos, smiling by the mill's first loom. "Everett," she said, You taught those boys to fight for what's right. Trust them. I nodded, but doubt gnawed. Had I dragged my crew into a losing battle? Then the phone rang. Old rotary, cracklin' line. It was Henry Vaughn, Amos's old partner, retired in Providence. Everett, heard what Clarence did. I got a proposition. Meet me tomorrow at the Seaside Diner. 8 a.m. Henry's voice was firm, like he knew something I didn't. What did Henry know? And could his offer save us, or pull me deeper into trouble? The next day, I drove to the diner, a squat brick building by the Taunton River. Henry, 70 now, sat in a booth, his fedora on the table. He'd been Amos's right hand, a man who knew every deal Whitaker's ever made. Clarence is running the mill into the ground, he said, sipping coffee. But I know folks, buyers, investors who'd pay good money for a clean operation. You and your crew could run it, Everett. I'd back you. My heart raced. A new mill? Henry, I'm a foreman, not an owner, I said. He leaned in. You're more'n that. Always were. But we need those logs. Hard proof Clarence is lying. I left the diner, head spinning. A chance to rebuild, but it hinged on evidence. We barely had. Back home, Walter called. Trouble, Everett. Clarence brought in scabs, out-of-town workers, crossing our lines, crews riled up. I cursed under my breath. Scabs meant Clarence was playing hardball. If my boys clashed, it'd turn ugly. Cops, papers, maybe jail. Keep 'em calm, I told Walter. We're close, but we need time. That night I pored over the ledger, looking for a smoking gun. One entry caught my eye. A $5,000 repair. Marked completed last month, but Frank swore the main loom's shaft was still cracked. If we could prove it, Clarence was done. Could we get that proof before Clarence's scabs broke our crew? Or worse, before someone got hurt? The next morning I met Frank and Jimmy at the mill's back gate, dawn barely breaking. We slipped. Inside, past the night watchman, old Pete, who owed me a favor. The main loom loomed in the dark, its iron frame groaning under strain. Frank pointed to the shaft, a hairline crack glinting in our flashlight. Been like that for weeks, he whispered. Could snap any day. My stomach churned. A break could maim a worker, maybe kill him. We took photos with Jimmy's Kodak, praying the grainy shots would hold up. As we crept out, a shadow moved. Clarence's new foreman, a burly fella named Roy. "What are you doing here, Hale?" he growled. I froze, heart in my throat. Roy was no millman, hired. Muscle, loyal to Clarence's wallet. "Checking my old stomping grounds," I said, forcing a grin. He stepped closer, eyes narrow. "Boss says you're trouble. Maybe you need a lesson." Jimmy bristled, but I held him back. "Ain't worth it, Roy. We're leaving." He let us go, but his stare followed us. Back home, I hid the photos in Mabel's sewing box. If Roy told Clarence we were running out of time, Walter called at noon. "Crew's holding, but scabs are working double shifts. Union reps meeting us tonight. You in?" I nodded, though fear clawed me. Were we pushing too far? That night at the Union Hall, 40 workers packed the room, air thick with cigarette smoke. The rep, Charlie Flynn, listened as Frank laid out the ledger and our suspicions. Charlie's eyes widened. "This is big, Hale. Fraud, endangerment. Could shut Whitaker's down. But we need those photos and a witness willing to testify." Agnes, shaken but brave, stepped up. "I'll do it. Saw Clarence fudge the books myself." The room roared approval, but my heart sank. Agnes was risking everything. Her job, maybe more. As we left, Walter pulled me aside. Heard Roy sniffing around. "Says Clarence knows we got something. Watch your back, Everett." Was Clarence onto us, and would he stop at threats, or something worse, to keep his secrets buried? I drove home, the Model T's engine sputtering in the cold. Mabel was waiting, her face pale. "Everett, someone was here. Left this." She held a note, scrawled in black ink. "Drop it, Hale. or your crew pays. My blood ran cold. Clarence wasn't just playing dirty. He was desperate. I burned the note, but sleep wouldn't come. Next morning, I called Henry. We got photos, a witness, but Clarence is threatening folks. Henry's voice was grim. He's scared, Everett. Means you're close. Bring everything to the diner tomorrow. I'll have a lawyer there. I hung up, praying we could hold out. The mill was a powder keg, and my crew was the spark. By noon, word came. A loom had jammed, injuring a scab worker. Not bad, but enough to halt production. Clarence was losing orders, and whispers of a state inspection were growing. My crew was holding the line, but at what cost? I met Walter at Doyle's, his face haggard. Everett, the boys are ready. To walk out. Full strike. But if we do, Clarence might call the cops. Or worse, his goons. I gripped his shoulder. One more day, Walter. We're meeting Henry tomorrow. This ends soon. He nodded, but his eyes held doubt. As I left, I saw Roy across the street, watching. My heart pounded. Time was slipping away that night. A brick crashed through our window, glass scattering, across the parlor. Mabel screamed and Tommy grabbed a bat. I pulled him close, my mind racing. The note was a warning. This was war. What had Clarence planned, and could I protect my family and crew before he struck again? Now, dear, hold tight, 'cause that brick through our window in 48 wasn't just a warning. It was Clarence Whitaker's declaration of war. I stood in our shattered parlor, Mabel clutching my arm, Tommy wielding a bat like he could fend off the devil himself. My heart pounded louder in the looms I'd run for 20 years at Whitaker's textile mill. I'd been sacked, betrayed by a boss I'd served loyally, but my crew, my family, was fighting back, uncovering Clarence's dirty secrets. Question was, could we bring him down before he broke us? Let's pick up where we left off, dears. That night, October 15th, 1948, I swept up the glass, my hands shaking not from fear, but fury. Mabel, bless her, was steely-eyed. Everett Hale, you don't back down, she said, voice firm. Those boys need you. Tommy, still clutching that bat, piped up, Pa, let me help. I hugged them both, but my mind was racing. Clarence's note, drop it, Hale, or your crew pays, meant he knew we had the ledger and photos proving he'd faked repairs, risking lives for profit. I sent Tommy to bed and told Mabel, tomorrow I meet Henry Vaughn. This ends soon. But as I lay awake, the wind howling outside our Fall River home, I wondered, was I leading my crew to victory or ruin? Could Henry's plan save us, or was Clarence one step ahead, ready to crush our fight? Morning came, gray and bitter. I drove my Model T to the seaside diner, the Taunton River churning nearby. Henry Vaughn waited in a booth, his fedora beside a steaming coffee. With him was a sharp-eyed fella, maybe 50, in a pinstripe suit. Leonard Fisk, a lawyer who'd taken on crooked bosses before. Everett, Henry said, show him what you got. I slid the photos and ledger across the table, my grainy shots of the cracked loom shaft glinting under the diner's lights. Leonard's brow furrowed as he studied the ledger's falsified entries. This is damning, he said. Fraud, endangerment, state inspectors'll tear Whitaker's apart. But we need Agnes to testify, and those photos must hold up in court. I nodded, heart lifting for the first time in days. Agnes is ready. My crew's got more, workers who've seen Clarence skimp on safety. Leonard leaned in. Good, I'll file a complaint with the Massachusetts Labor Board today. But Everett, Clarence has friends, cops, judges. He'll fight dirty. Henry clapped my shoulder. That's why I'm calling investors. If we prove Clarence's corruption, they'll buy the mill, put you in charge. The thought of running my own mill with my crew was a dream I hardly dared believe. But as I left, Leonard's warning echoed. How far would Clarence go to protect his empire? Was Clarence's reach long enough to silence our evidence, or us, before the law stepped in? Back home, Mabel was mending Tommy's coat, her hands steady despite the fear in her eyes. I told her about Henry's plan, and she hugged me fierce. "You're doing right, Everett, for all of them." But trouble was brewing. "Walter," Cobb called, his voice tight. "Everett, Roy's got scabs running triple shifts, crews on edge, some talking strike, others scared they'll lose their homes." I cursed. A strike could force Clarence's hand, but it'd paint us as troublemakers, maybe ruin our case. "Hold 'em steady, Walter," I said. "We're close." That afternoon, Jimmy Doyle showed up, face bruised. "Roy's goons jumped me by the docks," he said. "Said next time, it's my kids." My blood boiled. Clarence wasn't just threatening, he was hunting us. I gathered the crew at Doyle's Tavern that night, the air thick with sweat and rage. 40 men crammed in, faces hard, Walter, Frank Shea, the O'Connor twins, and more. Agnes was there clutching a handkerchief, eyes darting. "I'll testify," she whispered, "but Clarence knows I took the ledger." Frank held up a new find, a memo from Clarence to Roy, ordering minimal repairs to maximize profits. It was another nail in his coffin, but Patrick O'Connor's voice cut through. "Everett, Roy's spreading lies. Says you're stealing from the mill, setting us up to fail." The room tensed. Doubt flickered in some eyes. Had I lost? Their trust. Could I keep my crew united, or would Clarence's lies tear us apart before we could expose him? I climbed on a table, heart pounding. "Boys, you know me. 20 years, I've bled for this mill, for you. Clarence is lying to save his skin. We got proof. Photos, memos, Agnes's word. One push, and he's done." Walter raised a glass. "To Everett." The cheers drowned my doubts, but I saw Sean O'Connor whisper to Eddie Walsh, their faces dark. As we left, Walter pulled me aside. Sean's wavering. Roy offered him a raise to cross us. Betrayal stung worsen. A whip. Sean was like a son. Had I taught him loyalty only to see it break? Next morning, I met Charlie Flynn, the union rep, at the Fall River Library. He'd seen the memo and photos. "Everett, this is enough for a state investigation. I've got a contact at the labor board. Complaints filed. Inspectors will hit the mill tomorrow." Relief flooded me, but Charlie's eyes narrowed. "Clarence has got pull. If he gets wind of this, he'll destroy the evidence. Or worse." I thought of Jimmy's bruises, Agnes's fear. "What about my crew?" I asked. Charlie sighed. "They're heroes, but they're risking everything. Keep 'em safe, Everett." As I left, a cop car idled across the street, watching. Was Clarence already moving against us? Would the inspectors get to the mill in time, or had Clarence's spies tipped him off to bury our proof? That afternoon, disaster struck. Walter called, voice shaken. "Everett, a loom broke. Main shaft snapped. Scab workers hurt bad, leg crushed. Mills shut down." My heart sank. The cracked shaft we'd photographed, Clarence's neglect had maimed a man. I rushed to the mill, dodging reporters swarming the gates. The crew was outside, faces grim. Frank grabbed me. "It's chaos, Everett. Clarence is blaming us, saying we sabotaged the loom." I saw Roy nearby, smirking like he'd won. Had Clarence twisted the accident to frame us? Mabel's words echoed, "You don't back down?" I had to act, but how? I found Agnes hiding by the loading docks, tears streaming. "Everett, Clarence knows I'm testifying. Roy threatened my sister's shop." I hugged her, my own fear rising. "You're brave, Agnes. We'll protect you." But could we? That evening, Henry called. "Everett, inspectors are coming at dawn. Leonard's got the photos and memos safe, but Clarence is desperate. He's bribing cops to raid the Union Hall tonight, looking for stolen documents." My gut twisted. If they got the ledger, our case was dead. "Henry, what do I do?" His voice was calm. "Trust your crew and get to the hall now." Could we save the evidence before Clarence's raid? Or would his corruption bury us all? I raced to the Union Hall, the night air cold as betrayal. Walter, Frank, and Jimmy met me, carrying crowbars and grit. The hall was dark, but we slipped. Inside, finding the ledger and photos in Charlie's desk. As we hid him in my coat, headlights flashed, cop cars pulling up. "Go!" Walter hissed, pushing me out the back. I ran, heart pounding, clutching the evidence. Behind me, I heard shouts. Walter and Frank holding off the cops, sacrificing themselves. At home, I stashed the documents in Mabel's sewing box, praying they'd be safe. Mabel held me, whispering, "You're doing right, Everett." But my boys were in jail. Had I failed them? Dawn broke, and I met Henry and Leonard at the diner. Inspectors were at the mill. TR, would the inspectors uncover Clarence's fraud? Or had he already destroyed the evidence we fought so hard to protect? The radio crackled with news. Whitaker's mill was under investigation. Production halted. Clarence's face was pale on the front page, but he was denying everything. Leonard handed me a contract. "Everett, Henry's investors want you to run the new mill. Full control, safety first." My heart swelled. My crew, my family, would have a future. But as I signed, a call came. Walter and Frank were released, no charges. The crew was waiting at Doyle's, cheering my name. I thought of Sean O'Connor, who'd stayed loyal despite temptation. "We did it, boys," I said, voice thick. "For Amos, for us." 6 months later, I stood by the Merrimack, watching. Our new mill's looms hum. Clarence was indicted. His empire crumbled. The board begged me to return, but I waved him off. "I'm home," I told Henry, now my partner. Mabel and Tommy joined me, their smiles brighter in the sun. My crew, Walter, Frank, Agnes, and the rest, ran the finest mill in New England. We'd built something real, not for revenge, but for justice. Sometimes, kids, the best fight ain't with fists, but with heart. And maybe, just maybe, I'll take a shift at the loom again, 'cause some loves never fade. As I walked the mill floor, a young worker, Tommy's age, asked, "Mr. Hale, you ever miss the old days?" I smiled, seeing Amos's grin in my mind. "Son, the best days are the ones we're building now." But late at night I wondered, would another Clarence rise, or had we changed Fall River for good? If this story reminded you of your grandpa's tales, please share your own in the comments. I'd love to hear them.